Are you over 40 and ready to share your faith through content creation? Now is the time. I hit 5 million views last year using my video content script template, and I want to give it to you for free. It's valued at $2,000 because of its potential, but this season is about purpose, not profit. I believe in giving value, so this game changing tool is yours at no cost. Click the link in the description or scan the QR code to get started. Let's take your content to the next level. Let's go. Listen, I know, just to go ahead and get into this conversation, because this is one of the reasons that I wanted to have this conversation with you. And yes, you all, I did say it. You did hear that right. This is my oldest daughter. And so what I'm doing is that I remember we went to the Righteous Reformation. Of course, many of y'all that were part of the Righteous Reformation, were there at the event and saw my team that I had. And I did say that most of them all of them rather, are my children. But Jazz was there as well. Now, Jazz, I was sitting there looking, just being transparent because we had the conversation. Yeah. I was sitting there looking, and it's been a while since all of us have been in the same space at the same time. And I remember asking, because I sat there thinking like, man, I wonder if they dealing with some trauma right now, from being, for me being a dad and as a pastor. And then I asked you about it, and, you were talking about, it's been a while since we've been in your shine like that, but this was like your shine on steroids, tell me more about that, because I was like, Lord, tell me more about that. Talk to me about that.
Yeah, it definitely was like, being in your shine on steroids. Usually it's been a very long time, right? Since I was a kid and going to church with you, walking in with you, knowing you about to preach and, kind of being in the light of your clout, right? I'm grown. I got my own life, my own family. So that was that was familiar, but it was different, right? Because we're in a different space of life, right? You have your YouTube channel. So it was just different. It wasn't as much trauma filled as I would say, but it definitely brought up feeling like a kid again. It definitely felt like growing up, like here for dad, here to support dad. So there definitely were a few things that came up, but I still enjoyed it. I always enjoyed being there for you, when you have things like that to do, but it was just really neat to see the difference. And in this internet
explain
space.
that. And don't hurt my feelings. Don't hurt my feelings now.
Growing up, it was real local. You have the areas where you preach, and everybody knows you in town, so it was very normal to go to school. Everybody know who my daddy is, or go somewhere and they see my last name and they're like, "Oh, that's your daddy." But going somewhere deep in Dallas with people I've never before seen in my life, going, "It's Rock Leach," was crazy. It's crazy. That was very different, but it was nice to see that God is still using you, right, to connect with people, and that you're drawing people from what God has called you to do. So that's why I say it wasn't as much trauma, because I know the impact behind it is good, right? It's not like you riding around trying to sell a mixtape and everybody trying to, get on board because you rap now. That's not what was going on. You're out here talking about God and people are down for what you're talking about. So I enjoyed it. It wasn't, like I said, it wasn't too much trauma, but it definitely took me back to how I used to feel as a kid. Like, we here for dad about to get that mic and go crazy. That's how it felt.
Oh, I'm not even going to ask you were there ever times that, as my daughter, you were embarrassed sitting out there. Listen, I said, please don't put me out there.
That was it. You pastored for so long. You know what I'm saying? I can't even remember what I ate last Tuesday. You know what I'm saying? So I'm trying to go back and replay things, and usually if something will come up and it'll remind me of a memory, you know.
Mm.
So I like certain phrases you used to say when you would preach, like when you tell everybody to turn to a page in their Bible, and you say, if you're not there, say, Lord help me because I'm too slow. Like a phrase will come up like that. I'll be like, he did used to say that, and it, it's just random. So as
Yeah.
far as like embarrassing things, I mean, it. There may be one Sunday you want to use how one of my weekly lessons, in a sermon,
I'm
and
sorry.
to God be the glory. But
Here's my first repentance, Lord. Jazz. I'm sorry, baby. It
no,
just as I'm flowing, the Spirit is giving me. And that's just the first illustration, And I'm trying to help somebody, and you was my. I'm sorry. Let me go and repent for that right
it's
there.
okay.
Let me ask you this right here. What was the hardest part about being the oldest pastor's kid that people never saw? What was the hard? Let me say this. I don't even want to say being the oldest. What was the hardest thing about being a pastor's kid that most folk don't see? What do you think the hardest thing is?
I would most likely say it was wearing multiple hats. I was an
Mm,
usher. I was head of the media team. I was head of the praise dance team. If your refreshments wasn't by the podium, I was getting your refreshments. It was where I was everything.
yeah,
Whatever couldn't be filled in that Sunday was what role I played. Luckily, when you with my brother being a musician, he didn't have to fill that role. You know what I'm saying?
yeah,
But as
yeah.
far as for me, I could carry a tune, right? But I wasn't a praise and worship leader. So I just kind of fell into those many aspects that needed to be needed. It's,
Mm,
kids acting up, go sit back there with the kids, make sure they all right. So, it just whatever needed to be done is kind of what I fell into that role. And so, I feel as though since that happened for me, there what I would know the word and know the sermons you would preach, but as far as my relationship with God really
mm,
building, I don't think I had the time to focus on a true ultimate relationship with God and actually reading my word because I was another staff member whenever needed. If that makes
mm.
sense. So
That
I
does.
I definitely look back a lot of times now that I'm in my word and I know my word. I'll be like, that never sounded like that to me then. But I think it's because I ultimately didn't have the space to just be a child learning about God.
Do you
You know?
think that happens to a lot of pastors' kids today? Like they're
Yeah.
so busy trying to make sure that that dad has all the aces in the places, and they're busy being that their relationship with God is being neglected. You think that's happening now?
I do feel like it can happen for some. For the ones that don't, thank God. But
Yes.
there's definitely you can get so much into the routine, right? On
Hmm.
Sundays we do this. We wake up at this time. We're gonna go to church. This is gonna happen. After this happens, after church is over, we're gonna go eat here. Then we have another service. You get so into the routine that there's not so much time to where it's like, hey, have you been in your word this week? What did you
Mm.
think about that scripture? Did that touch you? Like, there wasn't time for intimacy because of the routine. I don't think there was much time for intimacy. But
You,
yeah.
is there a level of perfection that comes with it? Because everybody there's a
Yeah.
stigma about pastors' kids,
Yeah.
preaching kids, PKs.
Yeah.
Is there a level of perfection uh, that has to be there, and does that cause a level of trauma? And if so, how has that impacted you now that's kind of a loaded question. I'm asking kind of
Yeah.
three
Yeah. Yeah.
questions in
Yeah.
one,
Yeah.
but go ahead, speak to that, whichever one you want to address in there with the perfection.
So I think it definitely does make the children, the pastor's kids, feel like there's a certain idea of perfection that they have to achieve because in that I won't put that solely on the parents. I think
Hmm.
that falls on the congregation as well because a lot of times people will hold you up on this pedestal that you did not ask for, that your parents also did not ask them to hold you up to that standard because you are a child. You know what I'm saying? And the people around see you as, okay, this is our pastor. Our pastor is in the word so much that he's the one that preaches to us on Sunday. So his children have to be receiving that at home. So they also have to be up here, right? Which is
Right.
not the case of based off of everything I just said before, because of that routine. And so they'll hold you in the standard of perfection that is just not realistic. Perfection isn't realistic for anybody. except
Right.
Jesus, except God. It's
Come
just
on.
not ideal, right? And so most times you'll have uh and I also don't want to just say it's because you're a pastor. You were very by the book. You had very specific rules set for me and my brother. So, and I don't think that was just solely because you were a pastor. I think that's because of the type of dad you were. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? So, I that's why I don't want to say it's solely on being a pastor's kid. You know, and I can only speak from my own experience. I think that we would have had that light on us even if you weren't pastoring, just because of who you were, right? So it definitely was. I knew I couldn't mess up in school. I knew that if I was gonna do something, it needed to be hidden in the dark because if it came up, it was gonna be dramatized. You know, it was gonna
Mm,
be blown up because of who I am, my last name, what my last name is, and because who my father is. You know, so I know that's why most pastors' children get the whole stigma of, you know, pastor kids. That just mean they sneaky. They the sneakiest kids. You
right.
know. And I'm not even gonna say that's 100% not accurate. At least they have enough sense not to, you know,
Yeah.
broadcast everything.
Right.
It goes neck and neck with almost being, you know, how the president has his kids. You know,
Right.
those kids are in a whole different spotlight because of who their parents are, and I definitely believe it's the same things with pastors' children. It's almost like we need the Secret Service walking us around, making sure we not doing anything to make the congregation look at us this way, or you know, it's just
Yeah.
children aren't allowed to be children when their parents have the spotlight on them, especially in ministry.
So how did that? Because I want to ask you that because that's a lot of pressure. And I know you
Mhm.
went through that with, and this is good. This is blessing me because we probably should have talked about this more. To talk
Yeah.
about this more, but you went through this middle school, high school, and then was it the same for you in college? Were you still living by that? Because nobody was there to down in college. They didn't know us
Yeah,
know the last name. They knew you for
absolutely.
the last name. So
Right.
tell me how that transition was.
So, like you said, middle school, high school, my last name followed me everywhere. Enter a room. Oh, you are, and it was just there. Um, so being in grade school versus being in college, once it was time for me to go to college, I was excited to escape my last name.
Oh,
I was excited to be my own person.
hold on a
Go.
second. Give me a moment. Give me a moment. You was excited to get rid of the last name.
Yeah,
Lord help me.
I
Go
was.
ahead. I'm all right. I'm all right.
I was. I definitely was. And you know, even with going to college, I had multiple options and I definitely weighed out those options. I didn't want to be too close because I wanted to escape people putting this stigma on me as far as what I need to do and who I'm supposed to be. I didn't
Mm,
have the room to make mistakes that children are supposed to make and be able to learn from them. I
mm,
didn't. So when I went to college, that was, like I said, my blessing, but also my curse. I see how having the last name that I had growing up and having parents that people knew, I also saw how it helped me tremendously. I did. But I needed the room to figure that out on my own, you know. So yeah, in college I was able to just kind of figure it out, see what I like, see what what I don't like. And what I will say is that experience is ultimately what brought me to my knees to God. Hello. It did.
so
You know?
you got out there. You realized, Lord, I need you. You know.
Well, yeah, it did. But it's for children to figure out on their own. You know what I'm saying? You raise your children up how they're supposed to be raised, and then you set them out to go on their own, and that's exactly what I did. Now I was never in jail or anything like that, but I definitely had a lot of learning experiences that I'm sure that I had already had the crash course for them growing up, but I forgot my training once I got to college because I just wanted to
Mm,
do it on my own, you know? So, yeah, like I said, I don't regret any of it. It was all 100% necessary. I needed to experience God for myself, not just the God my parents, represented and talked about, but I needed to learn who God was for Jazz. not
Mm.
who God was for my mom and my dad, who
Let
he
me ask
was
you
for
this.
me. Hmm.
Let me ask you this, because and I'm sorry, you just got so many things that I'm thinking about, Jazz, because from my own experience, I understand. Was there ever a time where you felt like walking away from God? Like, this is too much. I'm talking about, was there
Yeah.
ever that moment?
Yeah, in college is the best example for that. You have a bunch of different religions. You have different people who believe different things. And I went to a HBCU. The whole worshiping your ancestors thing is a very big thing.
Mm.
Knowing your roots and all of that kind of stuff. So being
And,
out of
and
my
and that's demonic, but I'm gonna
it,
just go up with that.
absolutely, I know, but that's a part of the experience.
Yeah.
And so I definitely was curious, and I don't even know where the curiosity came from,
Hmm.
but I there definitely were times where I felt like, and it probably was later on down the road, but there were definitely times where I felt like just not wanting to do it anymore. Like
Yeah.
I didn't see the point or the purpose. And side note, that's because I like I said, I didn't have my own intimate relationship with God. That's why I
Mm.
felt that way, you know? Ultimately feeling this way and stopping, like I've always been rooted in knowing who God is, right? I know
Yeah.
who God is. I know he came in the beginning. I know who he brought here and how he created them. I know all of that. But like I said, that intimate relationship is not something your parents can give you. You
Right.
you kind of have to be, you have to go through this whole deliverance process and sanctification process to even get
Mm.
that. You know what I'm saying? So that point of feeling like I don't want to do this anymore was the beginning of my sanctification process. Like, okay, God, like this is, I have nothing left, right? Which I'm
Mm.
pretty sure plenty of people can attest to that, being to a point where you have nothing left, and then God is like, you do have something left. It's me. I'm still here with you. And so
That go
yeah,
keep going. That's good.
but yeah, as you were asking, I definitely experienced that. Not knowing what was next. And being a child of where your parents divorced, that definitely played a big role in me not understanding why God would do certain things or put me in a certain position to experience certain things. I think a lot of people
Right.
go through that of why would God let this happen and why
Yeah.
would this be that, and then but like I said, it comes to knowing and experience God for yourself. Sometimes those questions are necessary in order to see who God really is and to see
Mm.
how he redeems and restores. And I am evidence that God redeems and restores. Okay.